Hi, my name's Torsten. I'm based at the Hamburg Center for Health Economics, part of the ETN program. I'm working with Tom Stargart. My PhD focuses on blood donors and blood donations. So I have a series of projects that focus on this theme specifically. We collaborate with a large university hospital, UKE in Hamburg, which I'll talk more about. And today I wanted to sort of focus on one particular project. It's a comparison of two strategies, two events to attract blood donors and donations and assess them in terms of their costs and benefits. So the UK, as I mentioned, pretty large hospital in Hamburg, takes around 30% share of the blood donations market in Hamburg. It's a fixed site, so donors go there to donate to the actual hospital, and along sort of in line with many settings across Europe and Germany. Blood donations have been falling over recent years, so it really makes sense for blood collection services to have not only effective strategies but financially viable strategies to increasing donations or at least sort of maintaining them. So our aims are to assess these two events and then to assess them in terms of their costs and benefits. So our two events, we have the first one, it's the Biker for Blood event on the left here. It runs yearly, unfortunately not this year because of Corona. It's a collaboration with local biker groups, I wouldn't say gangs, but local motorcycle enthusiasts. It's a live music event where kind of they come in and there's food and there's sort of drink and they have fun, but the main point is that they encourage people on the day to donate. Those that attend the events, there's the bikers themselves, their family, their friends, the UKE staff and passers-by. The event runs on a Sunday, so they have to sort of open up the blood donation centre for an extra day, so obviously some costs around that. In terms of sort of replicability, the event could be expanded to other communities, sports clubs, companies, groups of friends if they're large enough. If other centres were interested in such an event. Our second event is called the Action Week 100 Plus, and this is where two medical students, they sort of came up with this idea themselves to collect 100 first-time donors in a week across the hospital. So they went around campaigning, running around the hospital, trying to get 100 donors in a week. And it's not, the event wasn't sort of, or the campaign was not really focused on a particular community or group, but they did focus on first-time donors opposed to all repeat donors as well. And this event can be pretty easily replicated, and is sort of quite cheap as well, considering we have sort of just sort of students running it, and they could be volunteering or paid a little bit. So what kind of method do we apply? I won't spend too long on this. We apply a classic difference in difference. We use a control site, which we have access to data, and our control site is sort of outside of the city centre of Hamburg, and our events didn't take place there, and it's a separate donor base there. Our DID assumption, in the absence of our events, both groups would have evolved in a parallel fashion. That's our assumption. In terms of costs, so if our hospital doesn't collect all of the blood donations it needs to treat patients at the UKE, it has to buy them from a third party. This particular large third party, which will remain nameless, charge sort of €82 negotiated price for these additional units. So that goes into our cost calculation. Our outcomes: weekly donations, total first time repeat, and costs and benefits. So some results here. We've got 4 graphs. We've got total donations and first time donations for our Biker for Blood event and our Action Week. I'll just pick out some details here. We see, I should say that our control is the bottom line, and our main site UK is the top line. So some sort of things to note here. We see a little spike in total donations around the time of our event in both cases, the Action Week and the Biker for Blood week. A little bit more pronounced in the Biker for Blood event, but the effect of the event becomes a bit more prominent when we look at first-time donations. We see this quite large spike around the time of the event in both the Biker for Blood and the Action Week, and perhaps here around sort of a few weeks later we see this increase in first-time donors, perhaps sort of encouraged by friends to come and donate. In terms of the numbers, I kind of rush through them quickly. Again, we see an increase in donations on the week of the event, particularly first-time donations, 90 additional in our Biker for Blood, 56 additional in our Action Week. A little bit more total donations, 110, 74. And then we see, sort of, as we saw in the graphs, perhaps this little increase in first-time donations in both of our events. But overall, the Biker for Blood week was a bit better at getting donations, a little bit more effective there, but the Action Week was much cheaper. So when we look at our cost-benefit analysis, we base our costs on the cost per additional donation gained at the price set by the third party, and we see that the Action Week was much more financially viable, with a net benefit of just under €5,000 compared to a net loss of just over €4,000 for the Biker for Blood event. So Action Week was not so effective, but much lower cost, and that's pretty interesting information for policymakers kind of looking to replicate or looking to choose what kind of events they would like to choose as a blood donation centre. Conclusions and policy implications. Both events are quite pretty good in the short run. They're getting donors to come, particularly first-time donors. This fits with the literature. Donors are quite responsive to things happening. For example, the 9/11 tragedy. Donors really came in the weeks of that tragedy to donate for altruistic reasons. But then sort of it's a lot more difficult to get these donors to come persistently and regularly following such an event or such a call for donations. Most donors don't progress past their first donation to their second donation. This sort of fits in with our results here. Kind of easy to get people to come once, difficult for them to come second, third time. The literature does show as well that kind of once we get donors past their third time donation, they develop this kind of donor identity and habits of donating, and then we can sort of rely on those donors. So the Action Week was the most financially viable strategy, and it's pretty replicable as well. Like it's quite easy to find a couple of students to go around campaigning for 100 or 150 donations, whatever you want to pick, and you could run that multiple times a year. So it's pretty interesting for other centres to consider, and they could also kind of not just focus on first time donors, but also focus on repeat donors. Perhaps kind of sitting in the blood donation centre, speaking to people donors that have just donated the first time, and encouraging them to, or getting them to commit to coming a second or third time over the coming weeks. And this will kind of focus on the more difficult donors to obtain, which the regular donors. So I think that's about it. A sort of very quick tour of this project, but thank you very much.